You know, there are times when my faith wavers. You may find this surprising, even shocking, but it's true. And if the writings of many of the great ones in the faith are to be believed, this is not unusual. Faith can ebb and flow just like any other emotion or conviction. Sometimes we have more energy for the things we do, and sometimes less. And while I know today's epistle reading from the letter to the Hebrews isn't as concerned with the mundane ebb and flow of my faith, it still gives me a great deal of strength. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Thursday, February 1st, 2024. With a piece of writing like the letter to the Hebrews, it is always important to keep the overall purpose in mind. That's why I am constantly reminding us that the purpose of this particular letter was to strengthen the faith of a congregation whose members had become weary of keeping up their faith. They were part of a minor new religion, not well understood by others, and so they were regarded with suspicion by friends, family, and neighbors alike. Sometimes that suspicion boiled over into overt acts of persecution, but more often it just meant they were a little out of step with the culture around them. Over time, that can take an emotional toll, and emotional stress like that just makes you tired. That's where this congregation was, tired and ready to give up, as indeed some of their members already had. The writer has taken a few different approaches to strengthening their faith already. He's reminded them that they have a great high priest in Jesus Christ who has opened the way to heaven on their behalf. He has cajoled them into staying within the fold because of potential dire consequences if they leave, having once received the grace of Christ. And now we are at the tail end of a section in which he lifts up a number of Old Testament figures as examples of faith in action. He signals that he is done with this section when he writes, "And what more should I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, quenched raging fire, escaped the edge of sword, won strength out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received their dead by resurrection. Others were tortured, refusing to accept release in order to obtain a better resurrection. Others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned to death. They were sawn in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, persecuted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains, and in caves and in holes in the ground." The cumulative effect of this litany is to impress upon his congregation that no matter what they may face or what they may have faced already, plenty of others have experienced the same or even worse. And yet they maintained their faith even when it would have been much easier to have followed the path of least resistance. And not only did they maintain their faith, he says, yet all these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better, so that they would not, apart from us, be made perfect. All of which leads him to this inspiring conclusion. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God." All of which brings me back to where I started. The whole point of the writer's letter is to strengthen those whose faith has become weak. And he does it by pointing to this great cloud of witnesses. If they can do it, he seems to say, so can you. And for that matter, so can we. Most of us don't face anything like the suffering for the faith of the audience he was writing to. But we sometimes stumble in our faith, and sometimes our faith ebbs. But knowing we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses is always a great reminder to me that I am not alone. Tomorrow, the writer of the letter to the Hebrews makes his point with characteristic bluntness. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.